Well, welcome back into the vegetable garden here in mid-Norfolk, and we're middle of June now. Things are really growing very, very quickly. I'm really pleased. I've got the water supply that we brought down from the borehole on a hose pipe to this border, because we've had to water quite a lot over the last few weeks to keep this looking lush and growing well. Beetroot in the foreground. Had to cover that up from the pigeons when it was young, but now starting to risk taking the covers off because it's outgrown them really. And the two sections that I have uncovered looking really good with no further pigeon damage, so I think I'm probably going to go away with that now, and I can remove the covers that you can see are suppressing some of the growth further down the row. But that end of the row was really completely decimated by the pigeons when it was just coming through as a seedling crop. The onions growing very nicely here, combination of overwintered, which didn't do too well in this patch. Again, I think due to the wildlife, that was replanted, and they're growing really, really nicely, looking very good. We've already harvested first of the new potatoes. I'm just about to harvest that one this afternoon. Actually, I might do it and show you the crop, because I've come down to pick a combination of salads here. The Vegeta raised beds have finally been filled, combination of topsoil, well rotted horse manure. I'm going to top dress those with some mushroom compost that you can see just in the distance there. Had Phil with his digger bring the pallet down onto the vegetable garden. Thank goodness we've had a man with a digger, because these really do take a lot of volume to fill. I wouldn't necessarily have filled them quite as high as he has, but I think we're going to get quite a bit of settlement in here. My idea really is to fill them to probably within about a foot of the top and use the edge as a support for netting so I could grow some salad crops. But my main interest in these this year and next year is going to get a raised strawberry bed going, because I haven't grown strawberries successfully, again because of the wildlife that we are constantly working with in this edge of nature reserved location, and those little buggers as well. Obviously they do like the odd strawberry. Salad beds going really well. I haven't had good germination with my French bean seed at all this year. I've struggled, repeatedly sown it. First lot I thought was just too early and too cold, but subsequent reseedings, I think it's a duff batch or packet of seed, it's just not come up well. So I've got a combination of French beans that I've bought as young plants off nurserymen. Rocket being repeatedly sown here, as you can see. Under the net here we've got nearest me the first sowing of rocket, which has been harvested twice now. Behind that a row that was put in about 3 weeks after the first, and we're cutting that now, but it's just starting to run again to seed. And then 2 weeks later we sowed this lot, which are coming through nicely. And the lettuces, we've started to prick out some, particularly of the oak leaf lettuce. I'm a real big fan of the reds and the oaks for pick and come again cropping. But I've also got a row in here of Webb's Wonderful, I think it is. Could be Little Gem, I can't remember which packets of seed I actually went for. Need to get that nettle out of the middle of that. You can see the spinach that I've just left in. We're still harvesting that, the tips, and just taking the leaves off and using them as baby spinach. And to date it's eaten very, very well, so that's quite a success story. Planning on doing a lasagna again, which it was excellent in, and I'm probably going to take that out because we have got a young row of spinach, as you can see just in the background there, which will probably need moving into a little bit more space. Runner beans doing really well, almost starting to set, well, they're actually setting some seed, as you can see. We're going to get some beans off those in just a couple of weeks. The globe artichokes that we planted out at the beginning of the season really established themselves nicely. I know they look as if they're in shade here in the morning, but we're filming at just after 8:30, and by 9 o'clock these are in full sun. We've put a catch crop of courgettes in between those plants, and a permanent rhubarb planting along the front, which has been moved twice and is showing the results of that. Just look, gone underground most of it, but I'm watering that well, and this one nearest me did exactly that. It's just putting up some small leaves as it gets established, but as we keep those watered throughout this season we should be fine. It will get established nicely. It's pretty difficult to kill rhubarb. Say that, I can do it, but I'm sure that's going to take, and we'll have a new rhubarb patch, a row of rhubarb in here. Managed to salvage some horseradish Initially planted this out, then Phil came with his digger to create this bed and it all disappeared into the mix. I spotted it coming up and we've replanted that into this row. May not stay there eventually. Just look at these courgettes. I've come down to pick these today. Zucchini, courgettes. Got a lovely crop, yellow ones that we grew initially in this cold frame. I've taken the top off now because it's just summer's finally arrived and caught up with us. Also got a little catch crop here of some radish, which I think are doing really well. Let's have a look, see what we've got. Oh yeah, nice little radishes coming up, so I'm going to pick some of those today. Also going to do some of those new potatoes, the zucchini, and we're going to be cutting some rocket and lettuce leaf because we've been enjoying that now for almost a month. Distance there you can just see the Jerusalem artichokes, which are starting to get established. Still a little droughty, they haven't really got their feet down yet. I'm having to water those still. Got a row of iris that we've rescued from the builder's yard at the front that will just grow on in here. And the asparagus, again, really poor survival rate from the dried crowns sold in sort of dried peat. We bought I think about 15 packets and I've got best part of half a dozen young plants that have come up from those crowns. I really don't like buying asparagus in this form. I don't know whether there's a secret to it. I don't know if you know how to get them to actually establish and survive well. Do let me know. But I have got a lot of little seedlings that I've grown on, which I'm going to thicken this whole bed up, so where the courgettes are in line with the Jerusalem artichokes, this is all going to be an asparagus bed permanent planting, and we'll gradually top dress that with more and more of the mushroom compost to build it up. But it's a nice raised dry sandy soil here, so they should do very, very well. Okay, well, moment of truth for the new potatoes. Let's see what we're going to get. Not an absolutely massive crop. The one on the other side was much better than that. Oh, there's more coming up. Yes, they're a little deeper. Should have got the fork right under, but I do tend to pull the top off first, because there's less chance of you putting your fork prongs through it. Okay, so that can go straight into this compost heap. And let's have a dig around and see what else we've got in here. Not a bad crop, and they are absolutely lovely. I couldn't honestly tell you the variety here, because these were just sprouted potatoes out of the fridge. If I had to guess, I'd probably say this was Charlotte again. Just because they're looking like a typical Charlotte new potato, and the ones that we had off the end plant, which I suspect was the same, cooked really nicely as a new potato, lovely and waxy. Okay, so I think that's probably just about my lot. A young oak tree there, which you don't want to mix in with your potatoes. There's quite a bit of oak fallen around here, massive amount of young seedlings coming up. Not a bad crop. I'm going to get my fork just under the remainder of this hole just to make sure I haven't missed any. And I've planted these in a sort of successive way, which isn't a typical way of growing potatoes. You can see at all different stages over this vegetable garden, we tend to put a couple of plants in every couple of days, and that's worked really well. So you don't get a massive single crop of potatoes. They're maturing at different rates, and the way to tell really is when it's just starting to flower like this. If you pick them then you're likely to get a small crop of young, new, early potatoes like that, which are lovely and clean and will eat really, really well. And then by the time you've eaten that lot, the row end at the back there will hopefully be in the same condition for picking in 2 or 3 weeks' time, and that way you get a lovely succession of what I hope are going to be absolutely gorgeous new potatoes.